Well, it was perhaps the most dramatic moment yesterday during a hearing about the terrorist attack in Benghazi, Libya. Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson, a Republican, questioning Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, asking her about the administration's initial claims in the wake of this attack, that it was simply a protest over a video that got out of hand. Watch.
We were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator.
What difference does it make? Joining me now, Simon Rosenberg. He's president and founder of NDN, a think tank and advocacy organization, also former campaign advisor to President Bill Clinton. And Mark Thiessen, who's a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and a former speechwriter for President George W. Bush. So Senator Johnson didn't really get the chance to answer the question that Secretary Clinton posed back to him, so I'll start with you on it, Mark. Why don't you take a swing? What difference does it make at this point why the people who were at our consulate that night, why they were there?
Yeah, well, you must be very relieved to learn, Megyn, that you and Catherine Herridge and everybody at Fox News have been wasting your time, because it doesn't make any difference whatsoever how these Americans died or whether the American people were misled about how they died. I mean, this is a scandal not just because 4 Americans were killed. It's not just a scandal because the administration ignored numerous warnings about the growing threat from al-Qaeda. It's not just a scandal because they ignored and denied Ambassador Chris Stevens' request for more security or didn't have forces in place to rescue the people in the 7-hour siege. It's a scandal because they repeatedly, for an extended period, laid the blame for this thing on a YouTube video when any sentient person watching the events unfold would have known that that wasn't the case. And so Congress absolutely has a right to ask these questions. They have a responsibility to ask these questions. And Secretary Clinton has a responsibility to answer them and not storm off in outrage.
Simon, reading the press today in response to that moment, because that was the big moment yesterday, you know, the most dramatic moment we saw. The one that jumped out at me was Eric Wemple of the Washington Post. Now, I don't know if our viewers know this guy, but let me just say he's not a fan of Fox News Channel, and he tends to be a defender of the administration. Yeah. And he writes about this moment, saying it absolutely does make a difference, Secretary Clinton, saying the trustworthiness of the administration's versions of the events, even the early one, makes a difference. Whether it was hardcore terrorism or a spontaneous attack or something else, that makes a difference, too, with strong implications for intelligence accountability. Your thoughts?
Well, I think you know what I'm going to say, Megyn, but I think that I agree with Secretary Clinton on this. And the reason why, and I've said this on your show many times, is that the administration didn't mislead anybody. And the assertion that they have, I think, is just false. And the reason why is that what Susan Rice said 5 times on the air, you can go look at the transcripts, she said they were violent extremist militants who conducted these attacks. Where there was confusion about was whether or not there were protests and how it all happened. But what there was no confusion about ever by any administration official at any point during the course of any of this was the nature of that it was violent extremists who conducted the attacks. That's what matters. That they got right. There was some confusion during her TV appearances about whether there were protests or not. But at that moment, remember, in dozens of cities throughout the Middle East, there were protests going on. It was a reasonable thing to have gotten confused about. On the thing that mattered, there has been no confusion. And the Republicans have played too much politics on this for too long. I thought she did a great job yesterday.
But doesn't it matter, Mark, even if it's, you know, even if they were wrong about the protests initially, if it was a good faith mistake, doesn't it matter whether it was simply a protest that spun out of control or whether it was a pre-planned terrorist attack meant to get us that had been building up over months as the ambassador was begging for more security and warning that al-Qaeda was on the rise? I mean, the two narratives are very different and would lead to a different response by the United States.
Yeah, it matters very much. And I will posit that Simon may very well be right that this wasn't an intentional cover-up of some kind. But there's actually a more disturbing possibility, which is that the administration had bought its own spin. that they've been telling us during this whole period that al-Qaeda was decimated, that they were on the run, that they'd killed bin Laden and put al-Qaeda on the run. And it didn't comport with their narrative that al-Qaeda had launched a major attack that killed an American ambassador on the anniversary of September 11, 2001. And they're still selling this narrative. I mean, President Obama said in his inaugural address this week that a decade of war is coming to an end. Well, they forgot to tell al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda killed 4 Americans in Libya. They just killed 3 Americans in Algeria. Al-Qaeda is on the rise in Mali. Al-Qaeda is on the rise in Syria. Al-Qaeda is on the rise in Somalia. Al-Qaeda is on the rise in Yemen. They're making a comeback in Iraq. They are not decimated. They are resurgent. And we are in a long-term war on terror, and we need to treat it as such. And this administration's paradigm of withdrawal and retreat does not comport with the reality. So it's possible they simply just didn't want to believe what had happened to them and were in denial.
Where was the moment in this whole thing, Simon, where the administration just came out? I mean, this could have been put to bed long ago in most circles if they had come out and said, let us come clean. We thought it was a protest because of everything you just said, Simon. You know, all the stuff that was going on in the Middle East and what we saw in Egypt and so on in the weeks before. We were wrong. Our intel was wrong. We had conflicting reports. We didn't want to go with the terrorist report because that's raising it to another level. We weren't ready to do that. We were wrong to definitively blame it on a protest, and we shouldn't have suggested that before we knew. And so that's our accountability to you. And now that we're all on the same page, now we go forward in figuring out how to get to the bottom of who did it and why.
I think they've said that, and that hasn't been believed. I mean, I think the problem,
who said
Megyn,
that and when?
No,
who took accountability for the misinformation?
Megyn, I'll answer the question, which is, I've said it on your air starting as early as the early part of November.
But you
right?
don't work for the administration.
Because they said and clarified about 10 days after the Susan Rice appearances on television, there was a clarification of the you just said a lot of stuff. I'm going to go through it really quickly. One is that it is important to recognize that the president and Secretary Clinton, the day after the attack, used the word terror, and they never walked away from the notion that these were terrorists.
And then they kept mentioning the video.
Susan Rice did not exclude that possibility. What she said was there was a protest that was hijacked by extremists, and she didn't use the word terror, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't applicable, given that the president and the Secretary of State had already used it.
Libya's leader was on the same Sunday talk show as she was and said this was a terrorist attack, and she pushed back.
Well, the point is that what she had been told and what the CIA has fallen on their sword on this and said they gave her those talking points, they provided her that intelligence.
I get that.
That was their best.
I get that. But when she's pushing back on the Libyan leader saying this was terror, don't sit here and tell me that she was out there saying terror, terror, terror. I knew it was terror. She did not say that.
Because there was confusion at that point, and I've said this on the air about
That's
the group
all they needed to say. That's the point I'm trying to make. Then you come out and you say there was confusion, but no one's ever had that press conference.
That's not true, Megyn. Megyn, that's not true. Megyn, at least about 10 days afterwards, the administration clarified repeatedly.
Are you talking about the DNI written memo?
What?
Are you talking about the written memo that came out of the DNI's office?
They admitted, and Secretary Clinton admitted it, and Barack Obama, they've all been clear that there was not a protest and that this had happened, that there was clarity.
Where was the press conference where they got to be questioned about it and came clean, and there was a robust back and forth with the press corps? That didn't happen at the time, Simon, because we were in the middle of a presidential election.
Megyn, I think that, as Secretary Clinton said yesterday, this has been settled. And the thing is, Senator Johnson, as John Kerry pointed out today, didn't know what happened because he skipped the intelligence briefing that would have actually given him the answers that he was looking for yesterday.
All right, I'll give you the quick final word, Mark.
Sure. I used to write these statements at the White House, and what you say is, look, we don't know exactly what happened. There are some reports that say it was a protest. There are other reports that say otherwise. Here's what we know right now, and as we get more details, we'll tell you. If they had just stuck to that basic principle, they wouldn't have had any trouble. But they wanted to believe the spin because al-Qaeda was decimated. They're not decimated.
Sadly. All right, guys. Thank you both so much.
Sure. Thanks, Megyn.